Morning. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is disconnection. I was thinking of calling it rationality, but we're going to be talking about the disconnection of the rational, the separation of head and heart, and how that has led to the disconnection of ourselves, with each other, with other living creatures, with life itself. So it should be an interesting conversation. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you here with us this morning, and welcome to everybody else who's joining us. Before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. So let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding into your lungs, flowing into every cell, every organ, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the pressure, the emotion, the temperature, and the tickling and tingling when you stop. And allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Looks like we're having a bit of a lag. I don't know if it's showing up on your end, but a little bit of a lag in our connection. Anyway, which is funny because we're talking about disconnection today. We as a culture revere rationality, and we believe that we need to make rational decisions, and that's where the wisest decisions are made. You don't want to include emotions. You want to be objective. And what we're doing in those situations that we make decisions using those criteria is we're separating ourselves from our knowing. We're separating ourselves from a deeper connection to something broader, and our intuition and our senses. We talk about coming to our senses, and we think that that's being rational, when in fact it's being able to embody our wisdom on all kinds of levels, on our physical, our emotional, our spiritual, our intellectual, combining those elements of knowing to come to a greater wisdom. When we cut ourselves off from ourselves, when we cut ourselves off from our gut reaction, for instance, where that disconnection is cutting ourselves off from our full intelligence, our full capacity, our full capabilities. And it's interesting. I was never really one to talk about the patriarchy, but recognizing more and more how we have been so conditioned to favor the masculine, and these are stereotypes, obviously, but the masculine rational over the intuitive and emotional. And we've even been belittled for being emotional, like it's a bad thing, like it's a weak thing to be connected to emotions. And thankfully, there's a rise in recognition for the value of EQ, emotional quotient, instead of just IQ, which is intelligence quotient. So emotional intelligence has actually become an important and increasingly recognized factor in our awareness and ability to contend with circumstances, to make good decisions, to have valuable social interactions. And we might consider it a rise of the feminine, a value, or a growing, hopefully growing, maybe not quick enough, value of the wisdom of the feminine, the sacred feminine, and allowing its significance to be regarded, to be respected, to be noticed, recognized and honored more and more. And it's interesting because I see the changes happening, and yet in the work that I do with people in coaching, it can be very emotional. And when people show up emotionally, I still have many situations where they say, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. You know, like they're sorry for getting so emotional, which is, wow, you know, that it's such a profound reflection of how we have lost the connection with ourselves, that we need to apologize for emotion when it's an expression of energy, it's an expression of an experience. And somehow we've been conditioned to believe that it's a weakness, that compassion is a weakness, that, you know, we don't want to be a bleeding heart. And I'm not advocating being a bleeding heart, but how about a spacious and loving heart? How about a beating heart instead of a bleeding heart? Like to be present to one another, to be able to revere caring, revere compassion, revere connection. So many, you talk about how things are good on paper, you know, like this person looks really good on paper, or it's just business. That's such a deeply entrenched I don't even know what to call it, a violation, where the notion of something just being business is a veil for abominable behavior and disconnection and lack of humanity. to be able to say, well, I can do that. It's not personal, it's just business. And the thing is that really, truly, it's all personal, isn't it? It's all personal, not personal. It's all a projection, but we can't justify our bad behavior by, or we shouldn't be able to justify our bad behavior by saying it's just business, that it's okay to do things in the name of profit or competition and justify it, justify cruelty and worse, because in the name of business, for example, or in the name of competition. What would happen if we can find new ways to create partnership, connection? What would it look like if businesses helped each other rather than try to destroy each other? That not only did they help each other, but were working toward the good of all. What would it look like if we created, what would a paradigm of connection look like? It's interesting to notice as we pay attention to ourselves and the way that we be in the world. It takes a lot of focus to even notice the things that we just do automatically. It takes a disruption that we somehow can manufacture within ourselves to be conscious. Like sometimes, for instance, you could perhaps set a timer on your phone for every hour or two or something, some period of time, and then use that as an opportunity to check in and see, what am I doing? Am I present? What am I thinking? Have I gotten swept away into being robotic, into a frame of thought that is a destructive spiral that I don't even notice, into a pattern that was imperceptible to me previously? It's a way, for instance, if we're to give ourselves the opportunity to disrupt our pattern through something that just says, okay, check in now. It's a way to be able to see ourselves, to get to know ourselves more deeply. One of the things that I encourage my clients to do is to pay attention to the things that they get triggered about and make note of those and bring them to our sessions. And it's remarkable to see what can get uncovered as we dig underneath the triggers to find out what's going on. Because usually, pretty much all the time, when we get triggered in this moment and we get reactive about something, most often, and I'll say pretty much all the time, it has nothing to do or very little to do with that particular moment. And it typically harkens back to a moment in the past. And so by noticing our disconnection, we can that can be a doorway into reconnecting, into finding greater alignment, into cultivating greater awareness. So Rosalind says, apprenticeship program could bridge the gap between not having anyone trained versus hiring someone with the skills to do the job. I'm trying to figure out how that connects with what we're talking about, Rosalind. Help me understand. So, not having anyone versus someone with the skills needed to do the job. I'm not sure where the connection is in, so please help me understand. Maybe you can expand on that as far as this notion of disconnection and awareness. When we are disconnected, I for a long time, I tried to understand this whole notion of good and evil. And I don't particularly believe that there are evil forces in the world. What I believe, I think, as a working hypothesis, is that evil is a lack of connection. That when we are disconnected, we can do horrible things because we are disconnected, because we don't have a sense of the impact. We're disconnected from the impact of our actions. So Rosalind, thank you for the clarification. Rosalind said, you asked how companies can work with each other. That's awesome. Okay, so so when you're talking about apprenticeship programs, bridging the gap, and we talk about companies working together, what we would need in order for an apprenticeship program to be effective would be to have some common values, to be shifting the foundational values from this notion. And we're talking about this a lot because it is what we get to contend with, this the polarity of the level of consciousness or the paradigm that we're living in, the black and white, good and bad, othering and self-interest and competition, the win and lose kind of scenario that is very much a function of this patriarchal culture that we have cultivated over the past long duration, you know, a culture of domination and control, or domination and subjugation. And all of these polarities are shaping it's all coming from the false belief in separation, you know, that we are not one, when in fact we are all intimately connected. While we may be distinct, we are all intimately connected and interdependent. And if we were to build communication with companies, if we had companies or businesses that were serving the world in their highest form, they would be companies that working perhaps cooperatively rather than competitively. We can have friendly competition. That's different. What we typically have is competition to the death. We're like living in a gladiator kind of society where everybody is out to win, and the way to win is to conquer, and the way to conquer is essentially to disempower or devastate the opponent. And the whole notion, so much of our language is reflective of this disconnection. It's reflective of war. It's we talk about being in the war room, to be creating strategies, and we have so many, and going in for the kill, and there are so many analogies that are really foundational to our language that are predatory. And reflective of this whole notion that's based in scarcity, that's based in separation and othering and otherness. And so, and what's at the root of that is disconnection, not being present to the connectedness of everything. And one of the ways that we can counter that is, as I said earlier, cultivating awareness, reconnecting to ourselves, remembering, bringing back all the parts of ourselves that we've exiled as we become more accepting of ourselves, inclusive of all the parts of ourselves that we may have reviled and exiled. When we bring those parts back and we expand to include them, that gives us the capacity to better include others, to better have compassion for those same aspects of other people as well. And, it's interesting, we talk about inclusivity and diversity, and yet with ourselves, we tend to try and annihilate the parts of ourselves that we don't like. We tend to want to paper them over, kill them, fix them, rather than deal with them with compassion, rather than heal them, rather than incorporate and respect them and heal them. Enroll them in the betterment of the whole. And that may sound kind of crazy because, how do you enroll your anger, for example, or your rage? That energy of anger and rage is an energy of sometimes frustration, but sometimes of passion, right? It's a passion for something. There's an intention. That the hypothesis that I work with is that intention, there's a positive intention for that anger and rage, and perhaps it's misdirected, but it can be harnessed and redirected when we are able to cultivate a deeper alignment and to be connected. When we become more connected, if we can look at our emotion as a call for attention, as a call to wake up to a situation, perhaps, or something that is spurring our deeper awareness, then perhaps we can have a different response, a different relationship with our emotion. We can use our emotion as a teacher, just as we can use the communications from our body as a teacher. And I'm looking forward to elaborating on that idea in another session where we can talk about communications from the body, or the wisdom of the body, or the body as teacher, because that's another thing, that we separate ourselves from our bodies, right? We don't pay attention, we don't listen, we treat it like it's a machine, rather than it's part of us and part of our system of experience, our system that it's the foundation of the experience of life, that we don't get to experience anything in life without our bodies. So I think that'll be a fun conversation for another time. So that's it for today, talking about disconnection and reconnection, and possibly setting an alarm so that we can wake up to what's going on with us at various times, to bring us back to presence in a conscious and deliberate way, to reconnect in a deliberate fashion. So that's it for today. And until next time, I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. And I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I so appreciate your engagement. I so appreciate the opportunity to have these conversations together. And until next time, so much love to you.